Welcome to Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee or a delicious menu item while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Come by and say hello to Maui. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
Hi everyone, Daphne Lage here. Join Nita Lanning and me on the Ragin' 2 the Vlogs show, where we talk about everything, nothing, and all the bits in between. Looking for hour-long conversations about indie comics, social media marketing, and crowdfunding, with the occasional rant and story time? Head on over to the Ragin' 2 channel on YouTube, Mondays through Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern to join in the chat.
Hit the button.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to your favorite podcast. If it's not yet, we're hoping that it will be, and we need your help to make it so. Let us know what you want to see. Let us know what we're doing wrong. Let us know what irritates you. Yes, I know I'm talking too fast. I get that all the time. I will change that. Anyhow, I am RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor here at CriticalBlast.com, Chief Envelope Licker for Critical Blast Logistics, myopic proofreader for Critical Blast Publishing, and I answer the phones for Critical Blast Consulting. And we're working on that Critical Blast cloning device because I just go a little crazy trying to do all of these things at one time. Tonight, we are going into a very special crowdfunding comic story here. This is going to be for the long shots on Indiegogo tonight. And if you're wondering who the long shots are, well, who's that superhero team? Never heard of them. Not exactly what we're talking about here. It is a team. It is a team of some super people, but it turns out that they're the creators and not the characters. And we're going to find out why that's the case as we talk with Mr. Randy Zimmerman. Mr. Zimmerman.
Hey there, everybody.
So glad you are back among the living.
Oh, yeah, me too, RJ. Real happy to be here. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
I love, and if you folks, get that ad we ran at the beginning here for the Rage and Vlogs too. Get over to that channel, subscribe to that. There's 2 outlets for it right now. Subscribe to both of them. And you'll get to see Randy on the Sunday Funnies as well as the Zimcast and a bunch of other shows that, will run on network that will intrigue you if you are an independent comics person.
I'll pop in from time to time. The wife tells me now I'm on every night of the week, and I'm not, but she thinks I am. So.
I'm not on every night of the week either. I take Fridays off.
Yeah, there we go.
I try to come in the middle of the day on Friday.
Yeah.
So Randy, for people who don't know who you are, let's do a quick.
I'm sure there's lots of people out there who don't know who I am.
Yeah, well, and nobody knows who I am. The numbers on YouTube will attest to that. But if we could just like a quick establishment of credentials, why you're in comics and all of that. Where did you come from?
I am a longtime alternative and independent comics producer, publisher, creator. I've been around since, the 80s, early 80s, 84, 85. I had my first story published in Just Imagine Comics and Stories. out of Chicago, same place that Doug Rice, Tom Artis, and a lot of other great people started from. Dennis Messinger, I believe his last name was, put that book together. And I stumbled across that because I went to a Grand Rapids con hoping to meet Mike Gustovich for Justice Machine. And he wasn't there, but Dennis was. He looked at my stuff and said I had to be printed and to send him a story. So I sent him a story. Other than that, I was printed with Aardvark Vanaheim in the back of Journey in a couple of issues with Bill Mesner-Loebs.
I remember Journey.
Yeah, it's been a long time friend of mine. Did a little Michael Taylor story in issue 11, then a JB Space story in issue 13 that became Tales from the Aniverse that I ended up printing with Arrow Comics for 6 issues, and then 2 issues I self-published as Weeby Comics, and then another 3 issues I self-published a couple of years later as Massive Comics. Then after that, I was free. Well, during that and beyond that, I was freelancing in the alternative market, doing any odd job I can get my hands on, whether it was lettering, pencil work, ink work, a lot of ink work, a lot of lettering work, not a lot of coloring work because digital coloring hadn't quite started yet. Everything was still being colored in by hand, and the majority of the alternative books were still being done in black and white. But then about the middle 90s, I restarted Arrow Comics again, what we called Arrow Comics 3.0. And we did 50, 60 projects as Arrow Comics for the retail market through Diamond. That included Arrow Anthology, Dark Oz, Wonderland, War of the Worlds, which I did. I also did a War of the Worlds series with Caliber that's still available over on Amazon that I'm especially proud of. War of the Worlds Infestation is what it's called, with artwork by the great German artist Horace. Then from there, I ran into literally a brick wall and kept button heads with Diamond over their hoops and their increasing minimums and just basic screw arounds by their representatives. So I stopped and I got out for a couple of years. I figured I had enough, but it gets under your skin and it gets into your blood, especially a chance to tell stories and sequential art, especially. And comics have always been a first love of mine. All kinds of comics, every type of comics that you can imagine. So I started my own newspaper here locally that I distributed called Flint Comics and Entertainment. I'm just a few miles outside of the safe water line of Flint, Michigan. Just a little bit.
Ah, okay. That's why you don't have a third eye. Okay.
That's you know,
you cover
that's up. That's up for conjecture. Yeah, that's right. That might explain why I lost all my hair, but no, not really. Anyway, I did that newspaper for 10 years, ran 100 issues. Most of the time we were monthly. Tried to keep a monthly schedule. When the Flint water crisis happened, it really crimped us, and it turned into a losing venture. So I ran it till issue 100 and stopped. But during that time, I was printing 10,000 copies and distributing that paper within a 25, 50-mile radius of my house.
10,000 in what's really a dot.
Yeah.
You had a good readership there.
Oh, we built up a tremendous readership, and it also reinstilled my love for comics and sequential art, because we carried syndicated strips. We carried Flash Gordon and Prince Valiant, and a few other adventure strips, Judge Dredd, James Bond, over the years, all sorts of humor strips, single panel strips. And I went around to a lot of quality people that I knew or ran across at shows and asked them to contribute stuff as well on a regular basis. We had interviews with people, short entertainment articles, a lot of columns. We had a column by a professional comedian. And anyway, it was just a great product, and it was a lot of fun to do. I just wish I could make a living at it.
Yeah, you're talking about how big was this paper that you were shipping out? And I mean, number of pages wise.
It was 20 to 24 to 20, 20 to 24 pages, depending upon the ads that we had at the time. Sometimes we jumped down to 24 if the ads were thin, just to make sure we were breaking even on the paper, but we wouldn't scrimp out on the comic strips. That was was the key.
You know how your local paper will put like all the coupons and the sales flyers and everything else in there, and it really pads the paper out. I'm thinking around that same time that you were doing that, boy, I sure wish you might have met up with Don and Maggie Thompson and made that an insert into the CBG that I was subscribed to, because that would have just been fun.
Well, I think at the time we were coming out, CBG was just about gone.
Oh, okay.
I am pretty sure they were, and by that time also they were monthly, at least monthly, as well. But they used to be weekly. I used to have it delivered to my house back
I
when
did too.
The Thompsons took over, and Alan Light, when Alan Light was running it. Even as soon as I found that publication, I subscribed to it. I had to.
Yeah.
That's the only way you could get any news back then.
Yeah, well, the news was always secondary to me on that, because first thing I would do is I'd read Peter David's column in the back, and then I'd go to Bob Ingersoll's column.
Yes, the laws of ass. Yes.
Oh, I love those things.
Yes, I did too.
Folks in the chat, Mike Walters, welcome. Thank you for popping in and liking and sharing. BAP2, thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
That Comic Reader and Comic Journal were the big news sources.
Yeah, well, we don't have that anymore.
We don't.
I mean, hell, we don't even have Wizard anymore, and that was shill sheet.
Yes.
But it sold comics.
That's a very polite way of saying it. I think that's what I will refer to it as from now on. That's a good term.
But it did sell. It got people excited about the comics.
Yes. Yep.
And I've still got somewhere in my long boxes scattered, because I put them in title order, not in, because that makes sense. All those little Wizard 1/2s that they used to say, hey,
Sure.
Send this in and we'll send you back a 1/2 issue. I'm like, 1/2? That's less than one. That's got to be $1 million in 10 years from now.
I'll be rich. Yeah.
I'll be rich. But
I was actually listed in one of the Wizard magazines, and in their On the Edge section for Spank the Monkey #1.
Very nice. I won one of their contests.
They literally said anybody who can place two monkeys in the middle of a female cleavage has got to be a genius. That's what they said.
Because you got to get them to fit. And I won one of their contests, so I've got a signed trade paperback of Catwoman: The Cat Files by Jim Balent.
Sweet.
And I've had him on the show 3 times, and I still don't know whether it's Balent or Balent.
Should ask him.
He's never said his name. It's like I didn't know it was Carl Kiesel until I had him on the show.
Really? Because you would around here we used to have Kessel grocery stores that was spelled the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. It's Kiesel. It's definitely Kiesel.
Wow. Good to know.
George Peter Gatsis is asking, no digital. No digital. And there's an interesting story as to why there is no digital on this. Because this is the long shots is all these books are printed. And, okay, well, we've all heard the story. There was, a Spencer's deal that wasn't there. A lot of people are very upset.
It's all explained in the campaign pretty lately. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, 7 creators on the hook that printed a whole bunch of books for a deal that turned it up not to be there. So they've got the books now.
9 titles.
Yeah. Nine titles, 7 creators, but 9 books.
9 titles. Yeah. 9 books then. And they're all really solid books. You should see these books. I can't tell you how amazing these books look, because we had them all gang printed. We printed 3,000 of each books because that's what was asked for. Here's my book, Herobot Zero. That's about a 3-foot tall giant robot that fights large, big monsters. But the colors on these are unbelievable. The paper on them is super shiny, like the old Marvel fanfares that you used to see. That was covered in cover stock. That were printed in cover stock, I should say. And most of all, let me get to the center of the book here and show you every book, because this printer had never printed comics before. Every comic has got not 1, not 2, but 3 staples along the spine.
Oh, that's premium.
We never caught them. We never told them you only need 2 staples. They never. I don't know if they even looked at a comic before they started printing them, but they printed them and threw 3 staples in on the spine. These books are amazing. I can't stress to you enough. And it's every kind of genre. They were meant for Spencer's, the large retail chain, and believe me, Spencer's does not want to be mentioned very often in this. And we don't mean to disparage their name or reputation in any way, shape, or form. But they were going to be in all of those retail outlets, and they were meant for everybody to come in and read. And we were working like gangbusters on a monthly production, because at the time we were told they were going to run a test market of monthly books. They needed 9 titles every month. So I was on month 3 before I went down from COVID. So I was almost finishing up month 3. But the Arrow, I restarted Arrow Comics again, Arrow Comics 4.0, specifically because of this. We got together with the other creators and printed all 9 books at once. And the printer we used was just incredible. I can't, I'm coming off of being printed on newsprint for the last decade, being printed in newsprint from Printy Press and Litho for the black and white books that we did for Arrow Comics, and looking at these color books, I was just floored by the quality.
Well, these people might have just found themselves a new industry then, because I know everybody's asking me, who's a good comic book printer?
Yeah, but you have to, with them, we had to order 3,000, and they cut us a deal because we were rolling for a yearly output. They were getting ready for us at a 3,000 mark. And then the deal shifted to 17 and a half.
Yeah.
And we got caught in the paper shortage, but luckily or unluckily or whatever, whether it was impinging and it come to find out, after a few months of begging for contracts and begging for proof that the deal existed, the deal didn't exist.
Yeah.
So we took back possession of the books, and now we're running the Indiegogo campaign to try to raise a little capital, because each book carried a $4.99 price tag on it. And believe me, modern comics, for me, they really have to justify their worth. And each of these books is 32 pages thick and it's got a $5 price tag on it. Well, we're offering all 9 of these number ones for only $25 plus shipping.
That's a great deal.
And there they are right there.
Because you guys, this was your own money to print these books. These weren't
yeah. We put up our own money for that. Well, I put up money to print 3 of the titles. I was in an agreement with Russ Leach, the great Russ Leach, I should say, over in England to print Only Death Can Save Us. And he had already done the campaign for the first volume. We took that volume and split it up into 3 books worth, with added short stories in the back.
Oh.
So you've got the first third of Russ's great book. And if you haven't seen or bought into Russ's campaign, you need to see this artwork. This artwork is amazing, very reminiscent of the prime era of Marvel. I like to say he's a combination of Gil Kane and Jim Starlin, which is a couple of his, not really mentors, but a couple of the people that work in comics that he truly enjoys. There's Death right there.
Yeah, that's some awesome looking stuff.
Oh, it's just incredible. And then the stuff he did, the new stuff he did for the back of the book, is even better, is even crazier. It reminds me a lot of the old Jack Kirby pinups that they used to do for Thor.
Oh yeah, you can see it in the posing.
Yeah, just great, unbelievable stuff. Look at that.
Yeah, Russ did one of the pinups for the Embrace that we were shipping out here, and it just looked awesome. That's
stuff.
Kirby all over it.
Oh, it is. Yep, even with the Kirby crackle in it. Yeah. Just amazing work. But I paid for that. I paid for the anthology book that I put together. It's Revolt. And then the Herobot Zero book that I showed you earlier.
So this is really, you guys are just trying to recoup money here at this point, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's all we're out to do. And who was it that asked about digital? Hang in. That was
George.
George, hang in there for digital. We're going to do a Kickstarter campaign that will offer not just these books in PDF form, but we still have all of month 2 is done.
Oh,
and Only Death Can Save Us, and what was the other book? Herobot Zero are bi-monthly. So there's 2 new number ones in month 2 that'll be coming up in the Kickstarter campaign. We're going to be announcing that here very shortly. Well, I guess I guess I just gave you a little news.
Yeah,
but yeah, absolutely. George, if you only read PDFs, we don't want to keep you from reading these books. We're really proud of them. But if you can afford to get in on this campaign and get the physical copies of our first month's books, we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's That's what this is about. And, I don't know if you mentioned who the press was. George saying Printy Press has been around for a long.
Yes, they were. And I'll tell you, with Arrow, it's so important when you're printing your alternative comics. It's so important to find a printer that knows what they're doing. And when I did Arrow 3.0, and like I said, we did 50 or 60, I think it was like 56 or 57 products. All of them were printed with Printy because Printy had the quality. Printy's not around anymore. But I went to Printy initially because they were the ones that printed Cerebus. Plus, they were literally an hour away from my house. So I drove the artwork to them, even though I had to cross the border into Canada. And that became another adventure, a story for another time, I guess you would say. But that was part of my joy of printing the Arrow comics, is I could take a film box full of originals right to Kim Printy at Printy Press and Litho, and they would look it over and print the book out for me.
Yeah, when I was in college, I was the editor of the newspaper, and I would carry the blue boards into the printing plant there. And I remember the one time my co-editor and I said, we're going to do something creative. And instead of like being, like the top of the paper being the fold, like we're going to turn it sideways so it reads like a tabloid. So when it's folded, it'll be, here's the front, and then you unfold it, and here's the front page. Well, it's like, first of all, you have to think about how that page is going to be laid out. Mm-hmm. And then it says it's front page, but it's not the front page. So the blue penciling has to say it's page this. And I'm like, okay, we got it all set up. This is right and correct. And took it to the printer, and the printer said, oh, they obviously made a mistake. Let's fix this.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
It's like, no, we worked on this for hours. College kids trying to figure out what this would look like. We're folding blue boards to say, okay, yeah, it does work.
Yeah, when I did the Flint Comics newspaper, I was printed about 20 minutes away from my house at a gigantic web press. And there were a couple of issues I did where I did huge fold outs where you would go, it was quarter folded initially, but it would fold out one more time and be about the size of an old style movie poster.
Oh, wow.
We throw a poster in the center of that in order for, and nothing brought me more pleasure than to walk into a schoolroom to teach cartooning and see that poster pinned up to the bulletin board. Just amazing. That's everything to me. But we also did an April Fool's issue in what I called Twirlovision, where every page was laid out a quarter different from the page previous. So you had to open the paper and then turn it to read it, and then turn it upside down to read it, and then turn it in order to read the next page, and then turn it again right side up in order to read the next page. It was hilarious.
Layout nightmare.
That's not a nightmare. That's a challenge,
Yeah.
That's what it is. And then I got one call from one person. That April issue? Yeah. Never do that again.
Well, you had feedback.
He goes, I was sitting on the John, and you were confusing the hell out of me, and people were wondering what the hell I was doing with the newspaper as I kept turning and turning and turning. Don't ever do that to me again. Okay.
Yeah, we used to do April Fool's stories in the college paper, and we quit because after 2 April Fool's headlines became real headlines 2 months after each time. We're like, the third one was the dean of students arrested for drunk driving, and I went into his office. I'm like, do we have to watch you now? Because we put a headline in there that said, the school's going to sell. The first one was that the school was going to sell condoms and adult magazines in the school bookstore.
Oh boy!
And the paper came out, and it was like, it's April 1st. Come on. The lady who ran the bookstore caught me in the hallway, says, who told you? And I'm like, who told me what?
Yeah. Hey, guess what?
Yeah. The second headline was that the school had been sold, and it was.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So we put our psychic caps away and like, we don't need the trouble.
Yeah, the following April, you should have run a headline that everybody at the paper had the highest scores in the school, and see how that worked.
Oh, yeah.
Giving yourself all A.
For that one. Yeah. Hail American Comics Company. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you here.
Yeah.
And Inkfinity Comics. Yes.
Good evening.
This man is a fountain of knowledge. Last time he was here, I was like, everyone's like, when the Graybeards are talking, I'm like, they're talking about
Graybeards. Yeah. Sometimes you can't shut me up, Inkfinity. Sometimes
No, this is the.
I'll just go on for hours.
These are the kind of shows I love, though, where somebody's got something to say and they've got a bunch of history and knowledge.
Well, you live it, and then you watch all of these other videos that are on YouTube by these people that think they're historians, and I've caught myself screaming at the screen a couple of times. That's not how that happened. You're nuts. Stop that right now. So
well, I steal from you all the time, Randy.
Well, you're welcome.
In fact, it was so like the Sunday Funnies was on, not yesterday. It was on yesterday, but last Sunday when I was driving, and you guys were talking about stuff, and then Perch puts up a picture this week from Marvel Comics, and they showed some of this horrible inking that went on, and I was like, "What'd they do? Send it to Vince Colletta?" Because I just listened to an entire conversation on Sunday Funnies about Vince Colletta.
Yeah, Vince, I don't think is with us anymore, but
no, he's not. I checked.
I'm sure if there's a few inkers out there that could ink exactly like him if they tried. But they really shouldn't. Please don't.
Well, I think I remember somebody saying, if they wanted to punish the penciler, they would let Vince do the inking.
Yeah. Editors would hold it over their heads. Get it in by such and such a date, or we're going to give it to Vince.
No. So what are the tiers that we're looking at here? While we got the page up here, the big blind, that's $100. What are we?
That's $100. That's got some metal bookmarks. It's got all of the books. It's got some metal bookmarks, some trading cards, maybe some sketch cards in it. It's all in the description right there.
Yeah, it got some playing cards.
Yeah. The $50 tier, really the $25 tier, where you get one set of all of the books, is the $100 tier is really the featured tier, but that's the $25 tier that you've got there. That's one copy of every book. Then the $50 tier is one copy of every book, plus I think 3 bookmarks and a couple of trading cards, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, a metal print too.
Yeah, and a metal print.
Well, there's the that's the one to get in on.
The really cool ones are the ones coming up. The Let It Ride is all of the bookmarks, I believe, and a bunch of trading cards, the metal print, and a couple of other prints besides, maybe a sketch card or two, whatever it says right there. There's some original art.
Original art always sells.
Yeah.
That should be bolder and higher up.
And that original art is probably going to be coming from Anthony Figueroa, because he is the one that's really riding stagecoach over this campaign.
And this is his artwork over here on the God's
his
Hand.
artwork right there. Look at that cover. That's an incredible cover. I'm pretty sure they're going to turn that into the bookmark as well. That image, because it's such a great image. Yeah.
And of course, they're going to keep going up.
Now, when we hit the 5,000 and the 2,500 tier, we're offering bound books of the material, and there's only a few of them offered, which is why you see, what is it, 1 of 0 of 1 for the 2,500 tier. I think that's for a hardback version. And then the other one, I think, is 10. There's 10 offered. And then, of course, we have the executive experience level at $10,000. Because when the deal was going on, when we went to sign the second part of the deal, all of us went out to Egg Harbor, to Spencer's parking lot. As far as we were supposed to go into the executive offices and meet the people there, because they wanted to meet us because we were doing business.
Of course they did.
Yeah, lo and behold, the person that was supposed to come out and meet us had a medical emergency that day and couldn't quite see us. But we spent a couple of hours out in the parking lot, all meeting each other, and for the first time face to face, and talking about stuff. And then we went and ate at a Texas Roadhouse. And before we did that, most of us met at an Italian restaurant and had a quick lunch. Then we went and waited for a few hours at the parking lot. Then we went to the Texas Roadhouse for dinner once we realized we weren't going to get into the offices.
Yeah, and I can't imagine the flight to Spencer's and just
drove.
Thinking, you drove. Oh my God.
Yeah,
okay. Because somebody had to be thinking, we're actually going here. What am I going to do when everybody gets there?
But I think they had it all worked out to start with. Tell you the truth, it's the way it worked. Also in the campaign, you're seeing, oh, by the way, that 10,000 tier is not a joke. If somebody wants to pay us 10,000, all of us will show up with you and take you around to where we went, take you to the Texas Roadhouse, give you that sawhorse ride that's so great, and give you a tour of the comic shop in Brooklyn where we went to the next day into their basement, had a little we thought was going to be a little meet and greet, and the Spencer's people again supposedly promised that they were going to be there, but nope.
Turned out to just be a pop-up signing
because it never existed. But anyway, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, it's
or not a whole nother story. It's just part of the same sad story. But yeah,
it's the
it just never materialized.
The Ender's Game.
And if you do buy in, I will personally also the next day or the same day that we're at the Brooklyn Comic Shop give you a tour of Central Park. We can go walk through Central Park together.
I've always wanted to go to Central Park.
There you go.
My first book was an Alice in Wonderland pastiche.
Cool.
This one.
And if any of the other creators have the time, they'll accompany us too.
Yeah.
Some of them haven't.
I always wanted to see the statues.
So, yeah.
So there's a lot of books in here, and I'm going to scroll back up crazily here. So if you're need to close your eyes until the scrolling's done, there you can reopen them now.
And there's a real brief description of what each book is about in that campaign on Indiegogo. But really quick, Only Death Can Save Us. We already covered before. It's a great, almost cosmic type story involving death and how death could actually save mankind. He gets to know a human really well, and the adventure just snowballs from there.
Yeah, death as a character, I think, is a great idea.
Yeah, and it just looks so good. I'm telling you, it's really a great looking book. God's Hand, also a great looking book. That's about a supernatural investigator in New Orleans and a case that they're on. Hybrids, there is a classic superhero story. A lot of rough and tumble action. Get to meet some great characters like Trash Man, who's on the cover there, and get to know their powers. It's Hybrids, the Sons of Gods. So in the Shield of the Interceptor was another great book. It's about a guy in England that gets the Shield of Avalon and decides to use it in the good of others and turns himself into the Interceptor, a superhero.
That's the first book of the set that I have not seen on my channel before and talked with the people.
Yeah. And Russ Leach did the artwork for that book as well.
Oh, well, double reason to buy it then.
Then we have Revolt, which is an anthology title. It's a black and white book. It's an anthology book that's got a combination of great stories in it. Emily Zelasco just does this intricate, beautiful adaptation of a Norse poem involving Odin that is just absolutely pretty. I've got a story in there. The story in the back is the first chapter of a serial we were planning on running that ties into the cover, the great cover by Chris Skelf there. That we were calling The Adventures of Ginger Star.
And did you have some Anniverse in there as well?
Not in this issue. If the deal had kept going, issue number 4 of Revolt would have been dedicated to Anniverse.
Okay, because I'm doing some reframing of things around my.
Oh, there we go. Yes.
So,
yep, that's a mischievous print from the Revolt book. The Revolt book, the campaign book that we did was a lot thicker. That was 140 pages thick. And that had a wide variety of short stories. Not all of those short stories were going to be in the 32-page edition of Revolt.
Dojo Kun in the house. Welcome,
Dojo.
Sir.
Hope you're doing well, buddy.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing your next video.
Yes.
Then
Oswald Chronicles is the fantasy tale that takes place in reality with a talking mouse who's learning magic and all of the mythical characters that he runs across. Now, the Oswald Chronicles has been out in a lot of campaigns from Dreamweaver Press, but this was the first time, the first full book Oswald was going to be in color. And the color you can see is super vibrant, just beautiful.
Yeah, this is Disney level artwork. And
the story that is self-contained in this issue, and it's just amazing. It's really tight, and it's just a great read. Then
Here's another
Wellkeeper.
given to me.
Wellkeeper is another high fantasy book, also in black and white. But when you get a chance to look at the campaign, you zoom in on that artwork, you're going to see this intricate line detail that D Fish does. Just phenomenal work. It's one of those books that when you see it, you know color will only distract it from all of the
Yeah.
work that D has done on this. And it's a high level fantasy book involving a young girl.
There's a lot of stuff in here that reminds me of scratchboard and woodcut effect.
Yes. Yep. And again, it's just one of those super intricate books it's amazing to see in comics in general, but especially great to see in independent comics because it's all love on the page. It's just great. Then we have Tall Tales from Daphne Lage. That's an anthropomorphic fantasy sword and not really sword and sorcery, but more of a knights in shining armor book. As you can tell, the main character in this story is the panda character there. Right. And the way I would describe it, but I'm from the old Arrow comics, is that it's like a cross between Tales from the Aniverse and the Realm. If you remember the Realm book.
I remember the Realm. I did read some anthropomorphic comics when I was younger. I don't mean like little kid younger, but like adult younger. Shanda the Panda.
Yes.
Yep. In fact, they were.
That's a title I haven't heard in many, many years.
Yeah, they were in Greenbrier, Arkansas while I was in Conway, so they were not far from me at all, Chris and his wife.
Cool.
And the last I'd heard from them, they were acquiring the Harvey license. So really? I thought that I thought we were going to see Richie Rich and them come back, but
I hope they got it. That would be interesting to know. Harvey Comics. I've been thinking about doing a video on Harvey Comics because that is the most un-PC line of comics ever in the history of comics. And they were made for kids and they were amazing. Just you sit and you look at what Harvey did or what the Harvey line was all about. You just no. You would never see that under today's standards. The moms would go nuts. Richie Rich, just the excessive rich boy, though he wasn't spoiled. He had everything he wanted. But you look at Hot Stuff, the mean little devil running in hell and having, the big trident and just a mean little devil character. Dot, who is obsessive over dots, just mentally obsessive over dots. Little Lotta, who is fat shamed all the time, didn't care. Always handled herself incredibly well. And Casper, especially. Casper was a ghost, a little boy ghost who wanted to make friends and couldn't make friends. And in the early issues, he was so depressed that he couldn't make friends. He tried to kill himself.
Oh my gosh.
Over and over again. Oh yeah. He'd tie his leg to a rope to a cinder block and push the cinder block off a dock, and it would just vip through his leg. He was all depressed. I can't make friends.
That's dark.
Really dark. Wendy, the Good Little Witch. Didn't all these titles from Harvey would never play in the mass market today. That's my favorite. All you see of Hot Stuff now are tattoos and slot machines.
Yeah. My favorites of the Harvey were whenever Richie and Casper would cross over.
There you go. Yeah.
Richie always thought it was a dream, so he wasn't worried about any of the stuff that was going on, and Casper's always guarding him from all the danger that caused them to cross worlds again.
Richie should have been glad he didn't turn into Casper because they look so much alike.
Well, there's a theory out there. There's a fan theory that says that Casper is Richie.
Yeah. All the more reason to do that team up book.
Yes. I'm afraid that they brought the Harvey characters back today. And by the way, folks, there is go back through our history. We have an interview with Johnny Harvey in our playlist of interviews. So I can connect you or try to, but I'm afraid if anybody did it today, I don't want to see an updated of the Harvey characters. I've seen the updated Archie characters. I don't like it.
Oh yeah, no, you couldn't do the Harvey characters like that today and get away with it. No,
they would upgrade them. They'd change the art. It would be drawn a little bit more realistic. It would get gritty.
So I think I would give anything to see Alex Ross painting of the entire Harvey line all in a group.
How much would that cost us?
I don't know. Probably too much. He doesn't. He ain't cheap. That's for sure.
No, he's not cheap.
He ain't
He's
cheap.
not $100,000 a cover, I know, but
Yeah.
he's not cheap.
And then Herobot Zero is my book.
Yeah.
I already told you it's a 3-foot tall giant robot. It's got a whole arsenal on his body. He's got he fights giant monsters in his hometown as long as he can do it on the clock and get hazard pay or time and a half. So he's got a very bad attitude about his job. It's meant to be a fun, lighthearted book that about a grumpy robot.
And you have a bookmark on the proper tiers for every book of the set.
Yep. All 9 of them will have a bookmark.
And they're metal. I don't know who's doing them.
Yeah.
I know people who do them, but I've seen some of them. They're really good.
Yeah, Anthony's got the hookup on that. He's the one in charge. Plus, there's trading cards, like I said, sketch cards, metal prints, regular prints. There's all sorts of fringes and extras on there. We ask that you just take a look at it and buy in if you can.
All right, so you're at 1931, but really, what's needed? What's got to be made here to keep you guys out of the hole?
As much as we can possibly get. To tell you the truth, we're not going to dig ourselves out of the hole with this, but it will give some folks. It will help us. And it'll give some folks some great, incredibly created and printed comics into their hands that they won't regret buying in.
Yeah. Phoenix Animation is the person I was thinking of. Dojo. I just didn't want to say it if it wasn't him, and then it'd be somebody else. I'm like,
Dojo knows more about the campaign than I do. That's awesome.
Well, where do you guys go from here? I'm going to take the page just away for a little bit, but where does Arrow 4.0 go from here without Faux Spencers?
I have no clue where Arrow Comics goes. I know what I'm working on next is a book about my COVID experience. Because
rival Harvey Pekar.
As soon as it'll be along that line. It's a slice of life book, but the thing is I went under October 13th, woke up November 23rd, came back to reality about 2 weeks after that because of the drugs and the respirator, the lack of oxygen or whatever you want to call it. But I came back to consciousness on the 23rd of November. But in between that time, I dreamt some crazy, incredibly lucid dreams that I'm going to put in the book. And we're talking I traveled the country and never left Flint.
So instead of Harvey Pekar, this is going to be more like Rick Beach.
To an extent, it's a combination of all of my experiences. It's really almost 3 books in one because I want to talk about the dreams that I had because they were crazy. I want to show you the drawings that I did because as soon as I did wake up and was able to move my hands and forearms, I asked for a pencil and piece of paper because comics to me has always been my lifeline and I wanted to draw. So they gave me a clipboard with typing paper and a pencil that had a little styrofoam tube around it, or a foam tube, almost like the pool tubes you get, only smaller. That was wrapped around it so that I could actually hold it. And it took me a couple of weeks before I could get beyond that holder. And I sat there and I sketched out stuff. I tried to do a happy picture a day. And then after that, I was doing editorial cartoons of myself and the situation I was in. I was marking time and remembering things, trying to put, because at the time, if I wasn't drawing, I was laying there watching TV, or I was waiting for them to come in and put me in what they called a cardiac chair, which they moved me from a laying state over to another chair table, and then they whipped up the back of the chair to where I was in a sitting position. And the first time you do that after you've been laying on your back for 2 months is not a healthy experience because you are decompressing like you wouldn't believe. And all of the thing is, when you're under, all of the muscles in your body atrophy, everything, the inside of the ear, the eyes, the brain, the mouth, everything atrophies. And so it all has to be kicked back into gear again. And luckily, knock on wood, and understand, I know I am blessed to know that I've got everything back. It's just that it's weak at this point. And
Did you have? Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say I got way ahead of the physical therapist quite often, to the point where I had a couple of therapists tell me to slow down, not to overtax myself.
Yeah. Did you have any sense of a passage of time, or was it like, with that whole month? What did you wake up like a time traveler? Like, no, it was just October yesterday.
Yes, that's exactly what it was. And though I had dreamt, and I remembered all of my dreams, I told my wife to hurry up and check the bank account, because I should have had $250,000 in the account from a contest that I won while I was under. And she's like, no, you never left Flint. And I'm like, no, I had this big survivor type contest.
Oh, wow.
There was one contest. I was over on the Vancouver coast that they stuck me in a capsule. I was in like a fetal position in this giant capsule with this plunger in front. They pumped the capsule with all sorts of gas. And then they ran me up against another person that was also in a capsule with a plunger in front. And who didn't blow up won.
Oh.
And I didn't blow up twice. So I was due some money. But anyway, it was just a dream.
But that's going to make a great story in the comic.
There was, I found out later, I had the doctor in charge of the COVID ward of the hospital come by. That's like 3 or 4 days after I had woke up, and tell me that he thought I was dead twice. He thought that I was gone.
Oh, wow.
He says there were a couple times, so we didn't think you were coming back, because most people end up going one way, he said, but you decided to go another way. And then, even though I could hardly move, I mean, I couldn't even shrug my shoulders. I could move my forearms and my fingers, my toes and my ankles. Tapped me on my shoulder and said, "Congratulations, son, you're alive." And then he left.
I'm just so happy. I mean,
I can't wrap. See, everybody, I know I'm lucky. I know I'm extremely lucky to be here. But a lot of times I just can't wrap my head around it. Because it seems like went to sleep, woke up, had some crazy dreams.
Yeah.
I attended Taylor Swift's wedding, spent some time with her Asian family. It was crazy.
There's going to be a lot. I got to read this comic now when you do it. So that'll be the next Arrow 4.0 project.
I'm about 40 pages in, but that's because of all of the pages that I drew. I drew when I was in the hospital 2 or 3 times a day once I could draw. And I went from a shaky, and I don't even have my first drawing, which is kind of upsetting to me. But the first drawing I did, I showed it to the physical therapist, and she had to have it because she couldn't believe I drew it.
Well, it's going to exist somewhere.
She expected some scribbles somewhere. And here I sat there and drew a cartoon dog for her. It was shaky, but you could tell what it was.
So you still had things that you had to do.
I did. I still do. Yeah. And then before this entire fiasco started, I was in the middle of a graphic novel of comics history. And I had gotten up to page 40 and was up to Wonder Woman, the creation of Marston and Wonder Woman. And
chapter in itself.
This deal crept up, and I switched gears and started working on Arrow Comics.
I'm not ignoring you. I am.
That's all right.
Writing in my checkbook the $35 that I am now deducting for processing payment on the long shots. So
appreciate that.
Practicing what I preach on this one here, folks. So get out there and do the same. Help these guys out. They printed these books with the expectation that they were sold already.
They were going to be distributed to other retail outlets. And we have already generated more money than that distributor has ever paid us for moving these products.
It takes a little bit, I guess, to pick up here, because it was at 1931 when I went in.
You have to renew. There you go. Nope.
Yeah. It's got to go to the bank and process, and I probably have to click on an email saying, "You really want to do that?"
Yeah, you probably have to reshare the screen. Maybe, I don't know. It should be.
That should just be with the reload.
It should be noted.
Sometimes
there,
Indiegogo is slow.
Yeah, sometimes.
They're not
Yep,
like,
I've still got the same amount you've got.
although I do like it when I like Indiegogo that I have to refresh to see changes,
Yeah,
as opposed to Kickstarter, because I'll do a Kickstarter show and I'm like, what was it when we started? I have no idea if it moved or not,
right.
because it just keeps moving, refreshing on its own. Well, shoot fire, I'm gonna
Nope, you
check
might
my
have to
mail.
check that that payment.
Yeah, I saw it go through. And if I go to my contributions page, yeah, there it is. View details. I'm there.
Yeah, it just takes
So,
them a while to catch up then.
all right. So that's that's gonna be a big. There we go. It is up there now. So it's
Cool.
popped in.
Bingo. Yeah, thank you.
So that's the next project from you. Is there anything else from Arrow? I mean, does Arrow exist really at this point, or was it
Well,
going to
Arrow,
exist for distribution?
when everything was going down and happening, Ralph Griffith, one of the founding members, along with Stuart Kerr of Arrow, had passed. And before he passed, I told him I was going to bring Arrow Comics back, and I was going to run with it, and we'll see where we go with it. And he told me to take it and run it literally into the ground if I had to, and just do it and just keep it out there. And Arrow was always meant to be almost like a commune umbrella imprint for creators. So we've had another book come out from Marv, who frequents
The Sin Killer.
The Sin Killer, also carried the Arrow Comics logo on it because Marvy asked, and I was happy to give him permission to do that.
Yeah,
But
we did the distribution on that.
Arrow's not dead because this deal has evaporated. So Arrow will always be around. There'll always be another Arrow comic coming. There's a lot of talk from a few of the original Arrow founders to maybe come back and start printing again. And I hope that I can be a part of that in whatever way possible. And then if something happens here where I can get things rolling again, right now I have a tremendous loss that I have to recover.
Yeah.
There's 2 number 1s that were meant in month 2 that I wrote that I am still super proud of. One of them is a superhero title called Paragon, and the other one is a high fantasy concept title called Calico of Shard. And both of them were projects that I've been developing for years, that I had the opportunity to get them out in front of a mass audience, or thought I did, and was going to do that. And like I said, I'm just incredibly proud of both products and know where they're going. They'll eventually see print somewhere. And when they do, more than likely, it'll be as an Arrow comic.
Come back and share them when they're ready to be seen by the public.
Yeah. Well,
please.
Calico, we've got both books. We've got 2 issues done. Calico, I'm probably going to finish first, probably after I finish my history book, because it's really a great property. I can't to try to explain it to you would take another 5 minutes probably, but it's a great high fantasy book that I'm sincerely proud of. And then Paragon's the same way. Superhero title that's very different from anything that I hopefully very many people have read.
Looking forward to seeing both of those. What's coming up new in the podcasting area? I mean, do you have what's lined up for this next week that people can tune in and check out?
Well, I have jumped over to the Ragin' 2 podcast network.
Right.
And I do 3. I'm involved in 3 of the podcasts. One of them is Dispatches from Outside the Box, which C. Michael Lanning hosts, Stone Abdullah co-hosts, and I just kind of hang around to add flavor and to try to get them to get me to stop talking. You know, they ask me a question, I can go on for 5-10 minutes. Then what I don't get out on that program, I do that's on Tuesday nights. On Wednesday nights is the Zimcast, which I wanted to do a news and opinion broadcast because I realize my time is limited and I've got a lot to say, quite frankly. And that's a lot of opinion and a lot of a little bit of news, a lot of opinion, a little bit of reminiscing. But the real reminiscing is Sunday morning. That's the fun show, the Sunday Funnies, which I'm especially proud of. And that's where we talk about the more fun and whimsical side of comics. We try to put the fun back in funny books. Now on I don't know what's coming up on dispatches. That's C. Michael's thing. The Zimcast, I've got some news articles that I really want to talk about. We almost got around to talking about them last week, but you hardly hear any news anymore, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean,
So
that's why I don't talk about news that much, because I'm like, what's new?
Well, there's hardly any news out there, but I found a few articles that I wanted to talk about and didn't get around to last week. I'm going to get around to it this week, along with a few other things, because a couple other things have happened.
I'm waiting. I keep watching the Google News because I keep hearing this rumor, and that's all I've heard it be is a rumor that somebody at Marvel has been let go. Somebody high up at Marvel has been let go for some possible improprieties. Been let go from Disney and Marvel, but again, it's like if Rich Johnson's not talking about it, how big of a rumor could it possibly be?
It can't exist. It can't exist. No,
Absolutely. I mean, and this is, Sana Amanat people are talking about. So,
are they talking about Sana?
Yeah, they're saying that Sana's been let go.
Oh, that's got to be somebody's daydreaming.
That's what I'm thinking. But it's two people rumorizing about it now. So,
have you ever seen the fourth World's report on Sana?
No.
Do you know about the Fourth World website?
I would assume that would be a Jack Kirby website.
No, I think it's called the Fourth World. Let me check here. Give me just a second. I've got them. I've subscribed to them. I'd have to jump over to another side here, but I'm pretty sure it's called the Fourth World. I'm pretty sure it's what it's called. The guy is a political scientist, and he's really good as psychologically breaking down modern comics. And he did an amazing report on Sana. This was about 2 years ago, I would think. It was about a year before I went. Yeah, about 2 years ago, at least 2 years ago. But
I would love to see it, because as far as I know, nobody else has figured out what she does.
Oh. It is very interesting. I don't want to get too opinionated or political.
You're welcome to. I mean, I'm just saying I don't do it to my guests.
No, it's not called the Fourth World, because I'm looking under the Fourth World on YouTube right now. It's called something else. Let me check my subscriptions here. So I really love this guy. He is incredible. He knows his stuff. He knows psychology incredibly well. And he's broken down the modern hero, the old hero. Where are you? Oh, please be around. Oh, no. I'm not seeing him at all on my listings. Fourth Age. The Fourth Age. That's what it's called.
Okay.
An amazing podcast. Well worth your time to listen. The guy kind of sounds like this. Hey, how you doing? But he broke down Sana and showed her connections to the Democratic Party and to the Clintons, and her
October 13th.
Her brother-in-law is tied in to some Wall Street dealings, and wow, it's just it. See, I never looked at when folks started telling me, because I did that paper for 10 years. I pulled myself pretty much out of the comic business. I still did comic work. I did a lot of commercial work during that time, especially. But I didn't pay attention to what you would consider the mainstream stuff. But folks started telling me that there was a culture war going on, and that I never realized was there, that there are, by all obvious indications, there are people up there in the companies that are literally looking to tear the companies down. And and when you look at the products that they do, it's like, yeah, it sure looks like that.
It definitely does. I've on the LCS guys show, we have Dave Dyer, Michael Tierney. Dave still runs a comic shop. Michael ran 2 of them, does mail order now, and they'll tell you, no, that book's not selling at all.
Yeah,
nobody wants it.
So, well, you have to admire anybody out there in the retail business right now, because they have literally an uphill battle. And it's not just the quality of the product, but it's getting people into the stores and making enough money to keep their lights on. And
Yeah.
considering the percentages that Diamond plays around with, it's a miracle these guys are still around. A lot of them are there for the same reason that we're in alternative comics, because they love doing it and they love being there. That's why they're there.
Yeah, and that's what we don't have anymore in the editorial departments at the bigger mainstream companies. I mean,
it sure doesn't seem that way. No,
we don't have a Julie Schwartz. We don't have a Stan Lee. They're gone.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have now are IP farmers that are like, just make sure that you harvest the book on time.
And it's scary and frightening too, because I sit there and I look, and I'm always looking to get for some new avenue for comics, because there's always, like I did with that newspaper, there's always a way to get sequential art in front of people, whether it's digitally, newsprint wise, cheap publications or whatever. There's all of these discount stores out there, these 5 and less or Dollar Tree stores and all of that. How come Marvel and DC aren't doing the same thing that all the puzzle companies are doing and putting together cheap little newsprint comics for people to buy for $1?
Yeah.
It throws me. And DC tried to do that with Wednesday comics. Back when I was doing Flint comics, they kicked out Wednesday comics. First minute I saw that, I said, well, where did they get that idea? And it's like, well, somebody just figured out how, if you quarter fold a sheet of regular newsprint, you can stick that in a magazine bag.
Yep.
So let's do an old style Sunday page with a bunch of our characters and put it together into. Why they didn't keep that going throws the heck out of me, because they were charging $4 for the thing. And I know they were printing it had to be under a quarter or less.
Yeah.
Depending upon exactly how many they were printing. Cause I know
you
how
had
much
a cover artist involved.
Well, you paid your artists. Yeah. And they got,
well, yeah, but I mean, you didn't have like
doing that stuff.
You didn't have the what do they call it?
You had a layout guy.
Nice shiny cover.
Yeah, you paid a layout guy to throw little dots in, to show the different features that were on the cover. And then the back cover was an ad that probably paid for the print run. So I'm like, where are these guys not making money? How come they stopped this thing? They were doing it weekly. They called it Wednesday Comics. They've done weekly books before for years. They did Marvel Comics
Action
Presents
did weekly.
Action Weekly, yeah. And they were stupid to stop it. Well, they did just enough to put out a coffee table book for $75 hardbound.
Well, there was the goal.
That was the goal. And it's like, what a short-sighted goal, because you got people coming in, even at $4, that paper was worth it. You knock it down $1 and you're cheaper than any of the other comics out there at the moment.
Well, they didn't want to outsell their other books. I mean, do you remember Dan Didio complaining to the retailers at a retailer forum that they were selling too many of the reprints? The DC was doing these.
No, they were
copies.
Yeah, they were doing tribute copies, and then he was sitting there wondering how come they were outselling the new stuff. It's like, dude, come here. I got a 2x4. I just want to plant it right between your eyes. Maybe you'll come up with the answer then. Maybe the old stuff's better than the new stuff, dude. Duh. That's literally a no-brainer.
And that's what I love about a lot of the indies I'm seeing, is that they are still using the magic formulas of the 70s, 80s, and 90s that sold comics.
A lot of these crowdfunders out there, they're doing stuff that they love.
Yeah. And they're finding out that, hey, I'm not the only one who's missing this. And they're making
some of these books are amazing.
Yeah.
I waited probably impatiently, really, a couple of years to get Long Harbor in. That was a Cthulhu type New England story that was all done in watercolors. Phenomenal book, beautiful, just unbelievable stuff. It reminds you of the old Moonshadow book from Epic Comics from what was that guy's name? Oh, I can't even remember who. I know J.M. DeMatteis. I think the guy's last name wrote it. I can't remember who drew it. Muth, somebody painted it. It's a painted book, beautiful. There's just some phenomenal products out there now that everybody just has to scope around and find them, or we do these kind of podcasts to point it out to people.
Yeah, it was John J. Muth.
Hey, look, here's a cool book, John J. Muth. Yeah, here's a phenomenal book. Yeah.
my first search brought up Cat Stevens. I'm like, no, he didn't draw that book.
No.
It's a Moonshadow artist. Well, Randy, I know that, like you said, you have got to still be keeping your strength up, and I want to keep you on here a very long time.
I'm good. I'm just sitting here gabbing. What's, I get that adrenaline running. I can talk for hours. But anyway.
Well, I love that spinner rack you got behind you. Is that a green screen or is that a real spinner rack of comics?
No, that's a real spinner rack. It is. It's there. It's a Hey Kids Comics spinner rack too. Had a retailer I used to do when I was doing the newspaper. I would do a show at the local farmers market, a one-day convention. And I did it to thank the local contributors who worked on the paper so that they could come in. They got a table for free. People would come in and pay. They'd pay $5 to get in because that's enough to, if you're going to pay me $5, you're not going to act up too much. You can come in for $5 and shop around. I had retailers, dealers come in and set up. So it was a comic convention with artists there that were mainly artists from the paper, from the Flint Comics paper. That's so you cool. you get to go around and scope all of these great old comics, and at the same time meet the guy who draws. I had Matt Fizzell there all the time because I love Cynical Man, and I always printed it in the paper. Matt would come up every show, set up, and sell his mini comics. For example,
Matt's an example of anybody can draw a comic.
Oh yeah. I used them, and I used his example in schools when anybody told me, "Oh, I can draw stick figures." It's like, well, hey, look at this comic strip. Here's a guy; He's a genius with stick figures. All you have to do is tell a story. That's what comics are all about: telling stories. It's not how good you can draw; it's how well you can tell a story. So, yeah. And then while I was doing those shows, one of the dealers come up and told me he had a spinner rack if I wanted it. So I was like, yes. Yeah. And it's even missing one of its ring bearings on the bottom. So when you turn it, it's got that squeak.
It's got to have the squeak. Yes.
And I told Scott Rosema that, Scott Rosema, right? He's an artist he's worked for Marvel, DC, Valiant, a bunch of people.
I think I know the name. Yeah.
He lives here in Michigan. And I told Scott that, and his eyes lit up and he went, "Oh yeah, that squeak." So that's the only way my mom knew where I was when I was in the drugstore.
It's got to have the squeak, and it doesn't spin evenly. It wobbles a little when you spin it.
It does. It's still got a little wobble to it now.
Well, it's got to. They all did.
Yeah.
So,
but I would spin it, but I've got toys and stuff on it, and to spin it, things would go flying. And
exactly.
I've got it full now. I turn it every once in a while on the show and readjust. Our Yoda mascot. He's wearing an Arrow Comics hat, by the way.
Of course.
And the Jolly Bee next to him, and the koala that's there with him. But
yeah, I think thanks to the spinner rack, we have a lot fewer and thus more valuable mint condition comics from the 70s.
That's very true. But also, it's a sad thing that them spinner racks disappeared, because that was the main hookup for the populace that didn't want to go into a comic shop. They could always hit that spin, even though the most of the new the comics, at least around here, come out 3 weeks later after the comic shops. But that was part of my that was part of my joy when I was growing up, is I knew where the direct outlet was in Flint, and I would drive. I drove back and forth. I had a hardware store job after school. I'd stop at that bookstore on my way home and pick up comics 3 weeks early. So I'd be able to tell everybody at school what was happening in the next. I got the next Avengers here. You want to read it?
I can go one up on you on that one, Randy. I grew up, and I don't know if I told you this last time you were on or not. I grew up in Sparta, Illinois.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you had access to all that stuff.
I had access to everything. My dad was a coal miner, but had a lot of friends who worked at the Sparta printing plant. And Sweet. For those who don't know, every comic book in the world
at that point
was printed in Sparta, Illinois.
Printed in Sparta
until they started sending them to Canada.
Heck yeah. Yep.
So, it's print overruns were brought home like stale donuts at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It was good time.
Yeah. I can only imagine. I bet it was. Yeah.
Of course, it wasn't a comic book store in 50 miles, but
the older you get, the more you remember those places. I could tell you where every comic stop, where every a spinner rack was within about a 25-mile radius of my house. Easy.
Yep.
And I grew up in a small town on the northwest corner of my county. So I knew where the comic rack, I serviced the comic rack in my hometown for about a year and a half for a buck's worth of comics every week, because the girls there at the drugstore didn't want to deal with the comics. They wouldn't let me touch the Playboys, but they'd save the comic bundle for me to put up and display. And that always got me first dibs on anything that came out.
Yeah. I pulled a
Chesting,
similar thing.
Birch Run, Clio, Flushing. I knew where they all were.
Yeah.
So.
When I was in high school, later in high school, they finally did open up a comic store there. And it was a guy who worked at the printing plant. And he opened up a store. It's like, really? You have
why not?
He had a real account. And I knew what day the book showed up. By the way, it wasn't Wednesday, it was Tuesday. Well, no, I take it back. It was Wednesday then, but it was like Thursday for the rest of the country. Because I know it was Thursday when I went to Chicago for college later on. It's like, oh yeah, the book's got to make it up here. And they made it, by the way, to the distribution plants in a big semi that would go past my house in Sparta. And I would like, there they go. Because a giant Ross Andrew Batman was clinging to the side of that trailer.
Oh, cool.
It was
Sweet.
just a glorious thing to see.
I bet. Yeah.
But I would show up before they opened, and he'd like be carrying the boxes in. And as he's going out for the next box, without being asked or permitted, I started sorting them, putting them in the bags backers, putting them on the shelf. And he's like, okay, just get what you want now. I'm like, yes, I've got a job. I showed up, I did the work, and I got
there
books.
You go. Yeah, yeah. It's the way it should work.
Free comics were the best comics.
Yeah.
All right, well, Randy, we've kept you here a little over an hour, but like I said, it's always good talking about old times and fun comic stuff. And
absolutely.
And I'll remind people again that that's exactly what you get 3 times a week out of Randy over at the Ragin 2 Vlogs Network. It's hard to say. Vlogs.
RAGIN 2.
Yes.
Ragin 2. There's at least one page, if not 2, over on YouTube for that. Plus,
yes, there are.
All the standard Facebook. Both of them. Yeah, all the standard Facebook sites as well. Some of the Ragin 2 content isn't on Facebook, but you can still find it over on that YouTube channel. Fantastic. So it's still some great listening on that. So and there's more programs coming on that network that they haven't quite announced yet. There's a special Sketch Saturday show coming up with Mike Jimmy and I want to say Marv will be working on artwork while they're talking comics. So I might be in on that a couple times.
I've got an idea for a show that I keep threatening to do, and I've never really sat down and put the work into it to pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also sort of inspired by the by some of the shows that have been out there before, where like, hey, we get a backer, everybody does this. We get another backer, everybody does that. Pitches Be Crazy was something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to call it Sing for Your Supper. And it's basically going to be, a couple of, creators on with their books. And if somebody in the chat backs one of the books and says, yes, here I am, backer number this, then they get to put a song out and we find the karaoke track for it. And that creator has to sing that track.
There you go.
I think it would be fun. Because I've been on a couple of the karaoke shows for comics people, they would just have fun with them. Like, we could turn this into a promotion.
Yep.
But we haven't yet. Heroenberg, thank you for showing up, even though it is late. That's okay. Always appreciate you popping in. Everybody, be sure to follow Randy Zimmerman on Twitter at
I don't tweet. I Twitter under Randy Zim, but I'm hardly ever there because Twitter is a cesspool of dark and depression that I don't want to be a part of most of the time. But Facebook, Facebook, you can find me as Randy Zimmerman over there most of the day. Zimcast is probably your best bet. You can always email me at the Zimcast, ZIMMCAST, with a the in front of it, thezimcast@gmail.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on here tonight and bringing the long shots with you.
Thanks for showing off the campaign, and thanks for putting up with me. So,
I could put up with you every night and talk about comics, Randy. Seriously, this is what I love doing. Like hanging around the comic shop and just saying, "Hey, you remember that book? Did you ever read this book? Remember when this happened?"
Remember those days? Holy crap! Those were some great times. We'd sit there, and back when the Avengers Defenders war was going on, we'd be arguing over who's going to beat who. And it was just such a great time. I miss those days. I desperately do.
I'd stand around More Fun Comics in Lombard, Illinois, and talk about, well, John Byrne says he has this theory that Superman's greatest power is that he's really just a big psychic, and it's all pyrokinesis and telekinesis and clairaudience. And I was like, that doesn't make sense, except the clairaudience made sense because he had to hear faster than sound, and that meant that sound had to be super too, and he had to hear things before they happened. Otherwise,
did you ever catch a fanzine called Omniverse?
No,
there was a couple issues of it out, but Omniverse #1 ran the theory that let me get this right: Ramatut, Scarlet Centurion, Kang, the Phantom. Not Stranger, the Phantom that was in Avengers 2, and Doctor Doom were all the same person.
Oh, I have heard that. I've heard that theory just floating around this past week.
Yeah, that comes from an old Omniverse fanzine. I still got it around here somewhere. It'd take me a day to dig the thing up, but Jerry Ordway used to do artwork for that. And it had a couple of really cool old fan theory articles in it that are just phenomenal.
I love fan theories because they become stories eventually. One of my favorite things to do when I get old back issues, because they still have good stories in those back issues. They haven't gone back and changed them. Is read the letters page. There's another antiquity.
Yes. Yep.
But I'll read sometimes these letters pages from the mid to late 70s and see who wrote them.
Yeah.
And they became creators and artists and con runners and stuff.
I got a Magnus the Robot Fighter, an issue of Magnus that they used to put fan drawings on the half a page worth of fan drawings. The first published work of Walt Simonson is there when he was a kid, was in a Magnus Robot Hunter or Robot Fighter, Magnus Robot Fighter.
That's got to make that a well sought after issue now.
Walter Simonson, yeah,
very cool. See, I
just sweet stuff. Just good old days, good old days.
Yes.
That comics kept us. Comics don't just keep you young today, but they kept you sane when you were a kid. When everything was, you only had 3 channels on the television, and you had to deal with everyday life, and school sucked, and everything was just depression. But you can pick up a comic, old Dick Sprang Batman, and laugh at Bat Hound and Batmite, and love rereading the Avengers versus Defenders War. I've got 2 bookcases back here. One of them, the whole one side of it is nothing but Showcase Presents. The other
Those are great books.
Oh, phenomenal books. And the whole other one side is nothing but Essentials, Marvel Essentials. Because I bought them all when they came out, and I didn't care who the subject matter was because it was great stuff that they reprinted.
Yes, absolutely. So I guess the Simonsons are going to be at Baltimore Comic-Con this fall. Which, reminds me, I will be at the NWA Comic-Con this Saturday. That's Northwest Arkansas, not Ice Cube's group. And I just heard about it today. And it's, what? As much as people complain about how comic books aren't the same, my big complaint is that comic conventions aren't the same.
Oh, tell me about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Because even this one, which is, Northwest Arkansas, so it's smaller. Who's the headline person? Michael Rosenbaum, played Lex Luthor.
Sure.
So, and I was like, oh, well, let me look at the rest of the guests. Actor I never heard of, actor I never heard of. 2 comic book people.
Is that a pretty big show for that area? It's got to be. Those guys are laying out some hard cash to get some people in there.
Yeah, you would think. Yeah. But, the only comic book people I know there are going to be Tim Lim and Doug Ernst. So,
wow,
I'll pop by and say hi to them.
Yeah.
Now they see me coming. But hopefully, there'll be more comic book creators there, and I can, turn on the camera, do some streaming, get some talk.
I'm sure there will be, but that's not how you attract the normies anymore. Yeah.
No, unfortunately, it's not. Anyway,
that term drives me crazy too. Comics ought to be accessible out there for everybody. That's why I said why they're not bumping into the dollar stores, why they're not trying to. Well, I'll tell you this: some of my not best reading, but I've spent more money on Ollies than I have on buying regular comics lately.
I wish there was one around me. You know what I really wish? I wish that DC and Marvel would both nearly tank financially. Because then,
well, as individual entities, they're almost there. It's just that they're supported by large corporations that aren't going to let them tank.
Yeah, when they weren't, they were always owned by Warner.
Yeah.
But not always, but for all of my life, they were owned by Warner Brothers. But if they were hungrier, if they're like, we got to sell comics, then maybe you'd go to, the Comic-Con and, hey, look, the DC booth would be back because they want to get people excited about their comics. Marvel would be over there. Archie would be over there. I go to the Wizard World in St. Louis. There's not a publisher there. The closest you get to that is the guys who've done some covers for Zenoscope are sitting there selling prints.
Yeah.
It's a comic book flea market with actors.
Yeah. And, I hear you. Sorry.
It's not the same thing.
I just attended a convention up in Midland, and there were it was a mall show. So there were tables set up all the way around the middle of all of the malls. It was a decent sized mall. There were probably 5, maybe 6 comic dealers there. Everybody else was selling everything else. Funko Pops and swords and cosplay costumes and who knows what else.
Crocheted little figures.
Yeah, crocheted little figures, little Lego figures. Yeah, that too. But the days, because I was looking forward to going in there and buying some stuff, I bought one comic. And that was Duck Avenger #0 that I hadn't seen from IDW. That's an Italian reprint of a Donald Duck cartoon as a superhero.
Well, Dojo wants to know about this stuff because he's near Midland, but
I want to know about this stuff. Well, they just had a mall show. Paul King I was just up there, Dojo. I'm sorry that I didn't know your address at that point. So if I'd have known you were that close, I'd have said, hey, meet me up there. We'll have a coffee or something.
Next time. Next time. All right. Folks in the chat, thank you so much for being here.
I'll tell you this. Tomorrow, I'm going to my retailer, and I'm picking up my copy of JLA Avengers, of the JLA Avengers book. Looking forward to that.
Oh, that's out now. Yes.
That's just a great looking book. And
I got one off Amazon
George Perez
a year
for
ago.
Getting that done. Yeah.
Yeah. I got one off Amazon a year ago. And of course it was out of print. So I ordered they're like $600, $500. They were huge, costly books.
Did they print that? They didn't print that as a full trade before, have they?
Yeah. Yeah, they have.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah. But it'd been out of print forever. I got one from the UK for like $60.
Okay.
And I just love the thing. But yeah, this one's going to be so much more, I'm sure, filled with bonus material and attention to detail.
Well, a real focus on George is what it'll be. George Perez.
Yeah. How much is that going to retail at?
$30.
$30?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go hit my retailer this weekend too.
Well,
and
good
take
luck.
Care of that
Good luck trying to find it because they're already selling it on eBay for like $200. So
yeah, somebody's scalping the darn things too.
Yeah, too many people are. But they only printed 7,000. And again, I don't know if it was because of the paper shortage or because they wanted to limit it. Maybe the license that they got from Marvel and DC only limited so many. But when I saw the print run number, I told my retailer, I said, that's not enough. They needed to print at least twice as many.
Yeah, at least.
So at least. Yep.
So, all right. Well, folks, as I was saying,
we're almost an hour and a half. So
yeah, we're going. We'll keep rolling along.
Do you normally run an hour?
I usually run an hour because, sometimes, if I have like somebody who's got a book, but not a comic book, it'd be like, we stretch it to 45 minutes. I'm like, how am I going to get an hour out of this? And then, we had Bill Willingham on here once, and I was like, well, this is a good show. We'll do this with the LCS guys. I looked up, it was 2.5 hours later.
There you go. Yeah. I got into a conversation with Brian K. Morris like that one time. We went for like 2.5 hours. Just kept going.
I've watched him. I have never had a chance to talk to him.
It's a nice guy.
I need to get hooked
I've
up
only
with him.
talked to him. I've never met him in person. I'm looking forward to doing that because he's in Indiana, I believe, or Illinois. He's not that far away from me. So
Yeah.
one of these days, we keep saying all of the publishers involved with the long shots too have gotten to know each other over the last couple of years, and we don't want to give up the friendships that we've already fostered. So we're all talking about getting together maybe once a year and just have some sort of a party or meet at a show or whatever, and be able to catch up with each other eye to eye.
Yeah, and realize that not everybody is this tall.
Exactly. Yes. Because Anthony Figaro is actually like 6'2", and to me, I always thought he was like 5'6", 5'7" till I met him. I'm like, oh, hey.
Yeah, company I work for, we've been zooming.
He's a little taller than I am. I was shocked.
The company I work for, we'd been zooming for a year. A lot of new employees, and we finally had a happy hour meeting. It's like, oh wow, they're like everybody's all different sizes. Yeah. I'm used to y'all being the same, little square.
And hey, look, you're wearing pants. There you go.
Yeah. Well, you're lucky if I'm doing that when I'm doing this. So,
I've got that clip from Kentucky Fried Movie.
Hands above the camera level at all times.
Yeah, I got that clip from Kentucky Fried Movie. The reporter going, "I'm not wearing any pants. Film at 11."
I remember that one. I remember David Letterman used to say that sometimes. And as usual, I'm not wearing any pants, and throw the card and crash and everything.
Yeah.
Back when David Letterman had a good show.
Yep. Sigh those good old days,
Yes. So thank you everybody for showing up and watching two old guys reminisce and complain and grouse about how bad things are.
Grouse. No. Yeah. Long shots on Indiegogo. Worth your time. Take a look at it.
Link is right below the video. Click it. Get 9 books already done.
Yep.
Already done.
Ready to be shipping. I think we're all getting together after the campaigns are done and shipping everything out all at once. So, and we have like 2,000, I would say 2,900 minimal sets that are good to go, ready to go.
43 have been spoken for. So plenty of them to get.
Yeah. So there's plenty more to go. Feel free to go in and buy in. All of the comics are incredible. Probably the best printed comics you've ever seen.
Yep. Get in there and raid this one, folks. This is a back issue sale that you're not going to see the likes of again. Yeah. Thank you for showing up in the chat, everybody.
And all of all of these properties aren't done. This is just like a number one from all of these properties. There's an Oswald Chronicles campaign going on now for a black and white Oswald book. You'll see more of Herobot Zero. I assure you, there'll be more. There'll be more Calico and Paragon. There's definitely more Unstoppable comics. There's more God's Hand. The second book for Only Death Can Save Us has already been campaigned. There's a lot more to come from us. So
it's like a big sampler plate of number one issues.
Yep. And it's a good quality sampler plate too.
Yeah. So hit the link below. Get out there. $25, 9 books. You will 35 books with the shipping. I can tell you that because I did it during the show. So that's done. It's taken care of. Thank you everybody for showing up in the chat. We don't have a show unless you're here to watch it. So we appreciate you there. And as always, while you were here, we just hope you had a blast. Good night, everybody.
Take care, everybody.